everybody, it's me, JJ Panzer, your smart apartment advisor with the Real Management Company, back with another weekly call. This week, I think I've got technical difficulties all straightened out, and I'm glad that many of you are able to join me. I do have the call recording this time, so I'll be able to upload it to the YouTube channel again this week after a hiatus from recordings last week. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about August rent numbers, some interesting pieces of information and little things about where we're at with rent deferrals. And we're working on some conversation about, I wanted to discuss the article about Veritas forgiving half of missed rent as well. Kind of interesting there also. Talk a little bit about commercial tenants and lease restructuring with them, and then we'll throw this to Denise for a legal and political update, and to Josh for an update on the sale market. And I think Josh, you have a video today to share. Is that correct? All right, very good. So Melinda sent me the rent payment statistics for this month, and it's looking. I'm cautiously optimistic that things are starting to get a little bit better. And it looks like we've got 33 apartment residential tenants who have requested a COVID-related deferral of rent payments. And 10 of them paid August in full, which means they're still carrying a balance, but they were able to pay August rent somehow. And we haven't reached out to them individually to figure out what their situation is. I see a few. I know that they're in businesses that I don't know whether they're able to open safely yet. But the other piece of analysis that I did on this was I went through and looked at the delinquency report, and the average past due balance is just under $4,400. And I didn't have a chance to go back and take a look at the average rent, but I think that that's somewhat more than a month's rent on average, but it isn't 5 months rent. It's not 3 months rent. It's probably somewhere between a month and a half and 3 months, if I had to guess. Probably closer to month and a half to 2.5 months. So it's interesting, and the conversations that we're having with tenants nowadays are they're cordial, and we're doing our best to accommodate people. And if you got $4,400 in debt, that's not a huge debt, but a lot of the tenants that come to us asking for a deferral of rent based on loss of income are saying, I think I'd rather just move and go live somewhere else, which is the experience that we've had with a lot of tenants. We've had a lot of vacancies over the last few months, and the units just aren't renting quite as quickly as we hope they would. And so part of the issue that we're having is, vacancies. I'm pleased to see the tenants are preferring to vacate instead of accumulating debt. The other interesting concept that I'm seeing, the other issue that I'm seeing, is that tenants come to us and they are simultaneously talking about deferring rent because they've lost their job and their income, and they're talking about the changing market conditions, and they want a rent reduction in addition to wanting to defer rent. And the two things are not one and the same. I mean, yes, they have the same final outcome, right? You're going to ask for money, or you're not going to be able to pay quite as much. But we had a situation with a tenant who signed a lease on March 10th, right before everybody went into the tank and we went into shelter in place. And so, yes, the market value of the unit has changed. It's probably worth 10 or 15% less. But this is a contract, and you don't just back out of a contract based on the fact that you think that it's going to cost you less to back out of the contract. And at the same time, if you're saying, and these people were, I've lost my employment and I'm not going to be able to do it, and they're using that as the reason to ask for a permanent rent reduction of $450 a month. And I'm thinking, if you lost your job, $450 a month isn't going to do it. And that's not what we're talking about. If you need to defer your rent, we can talk about a deferral. And what I've been trying to explain to people this whole time has been, let's not worry about the past due balance yet. I don't expect you're going to have to pay 100%. You know, my clients, all of you, and lots of others who aren't on the call, have definitely been really reasonable about requests for these sorts of deferrals. And once we see how much money we're talking about, then we'll be able to make a deal. And until we get to, you know, how much money are we talking about, which will only be known over time, I can't make a commitment to how much we're going to defer, but it seems like 50-50 is getting to be the number that people are sort of shooting for, is let's split it. That's my experience with commercial tenants. A lot of our commercial tenants are accepting that general concept that, you know, okay, we'll split the rent. You take half of the burden, I'll take half the burden, and we'll meet up again, you know, beginning of next year and see where we are in the reopening, what phase we're in, how much business you're able to do, and come up with another reasonable approach. So except for only a few, I would say 3 or 4, maybe 5 of, you know, 30 plus commercial tenants, everybody's basically doing a 50-50 deal, and we're pleased with that generally. And when it comes to the residential, I mean, except for a situation, I think, where a tenant just refuses to pay and they have the ability to pay, I'm not sure I see a ton of evictions, certainly not in my portfolio. And, you know, in the beginning, it felt like this was all the sky is falling. And now the reality of this is that it's not nearly as bad as we thought. And we're just going to try to get along and be good neighbors. So I think that's where we're at on evictions. This Veritas article talks about how they're offering to forgive 50% of the missed rent from April through July, which, you know, that's 4 months. So that's essentially 2 months worth of rent. But they're saying the rest of it has to be paid back in 12 months. I don't know what's going to be, you know, changing in the next 12 months that's going to let these people get these people to a point where their income is higher than it was before, and they're going to have enough disposable income if they can pay, you know, what does that work out to be, an extra 1/6 of a month's worth of rent every single month in addition to their regular rent? Like, I'm not sure that's going anywhere. But they're probably going to have to be a little more generous than that, and I'm grateful that all of my clients have been reasonable with this so far. So, yeah, that's where we're at, and I'm happy to open it up if anybody has questions or comments. Just happy to have a discussion. Bert, go ahead and unmute yourself, and we can happy to chat.
If you saw the speech today or the talk today by Governor Newsom, he talked about a $300 million pot that could help small landlords. It wasn't really specific, but I sort of caught on to that. Have you heard about that?
I've not heard about that. As we've discussed, and maybe Denise has a comment about that, but the what was it? I think it was AB 1410 was the bill that had, you know, an original proposal of an 80-20 split. If you forgive 20%, the pot would have 80% of your rent in it. And there would be some other terms, you know, you can't do any evictions, but that got watered down to some cockamamie scheme with, you know, tax credits that don't start for 3 years or 4 years. So it isn't useful, and it got turned into nothing. But
yeah,
I'd be interested.
This sounded like a fund that was held to the side that he's releasing. I haven't heard anything of it before. But it wasn't quite clear. But if you go back and look at his recording, it's right towards the very end. And his subject today was talking about how much of a support he is of small business. Right. It was in that context that he said that.
Well, that's interesting. Denise, did you hear anything about this? No, nothing at all. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know how far $300 million would go. It sounds like quite a lot of money in my pocket, but it's not a whole lot of money on the state's level. So, you know, it's a bit of an issue in that regard. It seems like that would be gone in an instant, but, you know, with 33 tenants, $4,400, I think we're owed, you know, $121,000, I think is what that came out to be. So, you know, that's a fairly small chunk, you know, and I would expect that the landlords would be asked to make a concession of some sort as a, you know, either it's a legal concession or it's a financial concession, probably both. And so, that's interesting. I'd be interested to see if that actually came to pass.
I think it's probably mortgage. I think it's probably mortgage that he would offer.
That would be
Cover
great.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's probably where he's coming from.
that would be great. Okay, anybody else have questions about the rent payment numbers and deferrals before I move on and we bring Denise on for the legal update on the various legal challenges? Okay, well, Denise, I'll put you in. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and then I'll put you on the camera, and we'll take it from here. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm pretty good, pretty good. And weather's nice, so that's good.
Yes. So I don't have much of an update today other than the challenge to the
Preston.
Preston. I was going to say Peskin, and because he was on my mind. Preston legislation failed. We received the official position of Judge Haynes on Monday, indicating that we lost, which gave us the ability, which we were actually expecting, and we were thankful that it was so fast. The hearing was Friday. His decision was Monday. So we are already in the Court of Appeal. That has been filed already. And so, because we were expecting the decision. So that's been filed, and we do anticipate not hearing it from the Court of Appeals until early spring of next year.
Oh my.
But at least that will give us some indication that there's not going to be any forgiveness, that it will be the ability to proceed to evict for non-payment and not just completely not evict for non-payment. So hopefully that will come to pass. So that's the only real update that I have, other than we are all expecting the eviction moratorium for residential to be extended again through September.
Right.
But other than that, the commercial evictions as well, currently August 15th, it's up, but it may be extended again. So that's currently all I know based on the fact that it's August the 12th. I'm going to know more probably next week with respect to what's going on with the moratoriums and extensions.
Okay. And I think, how does our case being in the appeals court affect the fear that was cited in the original letter of warning to the Board of Supervisors about this legislation, that people would rely on this and then not save to pay past due balances and end up in a place where, this gets overturned because it's probably not legal, and all of a sudden people haven't made, arrangements for this and they end up unable to pay. Does this mean that perhaps the tenant bar will advise tenants, make sure that you're not spending all your money based on, thinking that you just can't be evicted because of Preston?
I hope so. I think that a good attorney will absolutely advise their clients of that. And it'll be really interesting on the San Francisco Apartment Association, I believe it's next Monday, is having the tenant bar.
Yes.
And that's a great question to ask them. And the learned attorneys that are on that, I saw who was on the speaker list.
Yeah.
They're all very conservative and very good attorneys, but all conservative. And I'm sure they're going to give that advice.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
And yes, if anybody is interested, you should, certainly for my clients, you should be members of the Apartment Association for the purpose of getting access to meetings like that. That'll be a real interesting one. That's always a barn burner with the tenant attorneys sitting and talking to the group of independent landlords, the mom and pops at the Apartment Association. And it's good to get the perspective of the tenant bar on the other side to understand what they're telling your tenants when they get to them for their free advice. So that's a good one. And if you aren't already supporting the Apartment Association, I would strongly recommend that you join and get the magazine and attend the meetings, and the benefits as a member are useful to you, even though you have RMC and our great team taking care of your day-to-day management needs. It's good to know what's going on in the industry. One more thing, Prop 21 definitely still needs your money. That's the Prop 10 Redux from 2018, coming back to limit your rent increases to 15% between tenancies. So this is vacancy control. And I strongly recommend anybody with rental property, especially in San Francisco, especially, I mean, anybody in San Francisco, but especially if you've got long-term below market tenants. Just imagine you're, $1,100 a month tenant who's been there for 40 years, who's occupying a $3,500 a month apartment. It doesn't matter how much farther down this market goes and how much more difficult it gets, you're going to want to raise your rent by more than, $150 by the time they move out. And you're going to be in a difficult spot if you don't come up with your contributions. So I would recommend, please make your contributions as soon as possible, because they need to firm up the advertising contributions and the commitments for the election, which we're now in the home stretch within 90 days of this election. So hopefully we get all the things that we're hoping for in this election, or at least this one. So with that, let me introduce Josh again for the update on the sales market. Josh, welcome.
Everybody.
There you are. Go ahead.
I'm going to do a share screen here.
Oh, let me enable it for you. Yeah. Dude. And sharing all participants. Go.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Everybody can see that?
Yep.
That front door there?
Yep.
Quick side note, I just made a deal with a tenant in Oakland, 50%. They were able to pay in September. So I think it was 4 months that they were paying, not paying, and I waived 50% of it, and then they're going to owe 50%. So I just did that myself. So I think that is going to be kind of the norm here, that maybe the standard of waiving 50 and collecting 50 over time. Yeah, and 12 months does seem like a short period of time. This building, so I do have a deal of the day. This is a building in San Francisco at 20 Cumberland Street, a block from Dolores Park. This is a 6-unit building, priced at $2,700,000. They're all 1-bedroom units. Not a great price per unit at $450,000. But I'll get to, I'm going to run a slideshow of some photos just to see the building. And so again, what I'm looking for in San Francisco are 5 caps, five plus caps, and they're coming out more and more. The inventory is very high right now on the 5+ unit side. And so I just, more and more I'm seeing these 5 cap deals kind of come out. So these units they're all 1-bedroom units. Like I mentioned, they're roughly 650 square feet per unit. They have living rooms. They have an eat-in kitchen. They even have a couple of them towards the back, have these small offices off the back there. Some of the living rooms are being used as a second bedroom, as is common in San Francisco. So, it's a beautiful building, a beautiful location, right around the corner from Tartine Bakery and Buy-Right. And, obviously a block from the park is a big deal. No parking, which is okay. It's 1-bedroom units over here, no big deal. Storage and laundry in the basement. So I don't know about converting. It looks pretty low, that basement area, to be thinking about ADUs, but it's possible.
Well, I was looking at that actually. You see, it's got 4 levels in the back there, and stop it right there. I mean,
yeah. I was just thinking at the front, you're so close to the sidewalk, but yeah, tuck one in the back.
Yeah, that could be nice.
So, walking into a 5 cap in this neighborhood, 6 units, is a great thing. The kicker that really struck me here was the seller is offering seller financing at a 5% loan, interest only for 10 years. And you really can't get a 10% interest. 5% interest only 10-year loan on the market. I mean, that doesn't exist. So this is clearly a owner who does not want to pay capital gains and is going to stretch out. You know, I don't know exactly what down. I sent an email to the agent to see what kind of down payment they're looking for. I would figure, you know, it depends how much cap gains they're trying to protect. If they're, you know, wanting to protect nearly all of it, it could be a 10% down deal, which is really amazing. I underwrote it at 30% down, so $810,000 down. You know, that 5% interest only leaves you with a 5% cash on cash return. Day one, walking right into a 5% return on that 810. So it leaves you 41,000 a year. So, you know, I think that over 10 years, you're going to see great appreciation with this building, and you know, you could pay some of that debt down. Well, you might not be able to pay it down, but after that 10 years, you can take a big chunk out of that principal. You can tuck money aside or whatever it is to knock out that principal when you refi. So this is a pretty interesting deal for that reason. And I wanted to show just a couple of the interior shots. The Vanguard deal. Here's a video, and this shows some interior shots. So, you know, classic, you know, the beautiful bay windows there, nice hardwood floors, not updated, not surprising. In the kitchens there, I mean, you know, semi, certainly not original, but, you know, again, like, you're just not, you know, 6 months ago, this deal is not a 5 cap, it's a 3.5 cap, 3 cap. So ton of potential, nice backyard here. It's great. And then location obviously is terrific. So this is just a good example of like these deals that are kind of sneaking in at good numbers. I know, you know, not a lot of us are in the buying mood right now, but this is a nice deal to share. And if I was a San Francisco buyer, this would definitely be on my radar. Because I'm still seeing the stuff come out where you have these stubborn kind of agents and stubborn sellers trying to get last year's numbers, and most of them are sitting. Anyway, nice opportunity here. And I think that, you know, as the rental market suffers in San Francisco, you're going to see more and more of these. And I love a good interest only loan if I'm feeling like appreciation is going to be there, building appreciation, which I think is the case here, because you're going to have some turnover in 10 years. You're going to have some rent increase, and hopefully, you know, after 10 years, all of this is long in the rearview mirror. So
What's your average rent per door on that per month?
It's I have to check.
Okay.
Not sure.
Yeah, because I mean, 1 bedrooms over there are definitely, you know, they're worth 25 to 3. Those are nice units. Those are not, you know, those are not tiny 1 bedrooms. They
Right.
are. It's interesting that that middle room is more of a dining room, but that one unit is definitely a good floor plan.
Yeah, and I could show you actually the floor plans here.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, you have a big living room in the front, which is obviously being used as a 2-bedroom for, I would imagine, half of those units.
Yeah, possibly for the size of the kitchen too.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly, and then the office.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue with that is that if you are going to go to bed in the bedroom, the one that's labeled bedroom, your roommate can't get to the kitchen without going through your room.
True.
But you know, it's still nice. I mean, it's a great 1 bedroom, and that's a fantastic location. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Cool.
That's my deal of the day. Happy to answer any questions, or if anybody has any general market questions. That's what I got.
All right, cool. Well, I like that one. Very good. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Last call for questions. Otherwise, I will bid you farewell for one more week, and I promise I'll figure out what the heck I did wrong with Zoom again for next week and stop doing that. So my apologies. Thank you for joining me. Have a great week. Take care, everybody.
See ya.
Live long